She is here. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is in the building.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome home.
How does it feel like being, we haven't had a chance to ask you this, but being like a star around the country now? Like you're a star around the country.
I'm a star in my own mind.
No, you're not.
No, it's nice that there's so much interest in Atlanta. It's starting to really sink in, especially when I go out of town. And I was recently in New Orleans speaking on the panel at the Essence Festival, and people care about our city. So, I mean, it's an honor to be the face of it, but it really is about Atlanta.
Okay. Are you ready? Because it's getting big. You're speaking to the Democratic National Convention here on Thursday.
I am, and I'm very excited.
You're doing the keynote at the luncheon?
Well, it's funny. I said to my husband yesterday, I said, oh, the fact that they asked me to speak, I guess this is a really big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I take it day by day, so got to get ready for that.
You know, I think as far as the way we look at world politics, and I'll say this real quick, and especially politics in general in our country, I think there are stars that are starting to emerge that people are looking at, because I think that we as a people are looking for new leadership, because we don't think our current leadership is doing it, especially in the Democratic Party. And when I look at you and I look at others like Cory Booker, I start to see a different way our country can be. So congratulations. I think you're going to have a major role in the Democratic Party. So enjoy while you're mayor, because you ain't going to be mayor after that long, because you're going to be doing national stuff,
journey,
okay?
right?
So tell your family, Frank Ski said, enjoy it while we got it.
Well, as my mother says, thank you for the rumor.
Okay, no, it ain't no rumor.
I appreciate it, but I really do think it's about our city. And really, I was laughing with my husband last night. We went to the Juicy Crab on Camp Creek. Shout out to Camp Creek.
Yeah.
And I said it's still funny to me when people pay attention to me. I said, because I'm the same person I was before I won. So I think really what it means is that they're leaders amongst us, and it really is about finding our voices and just owning our season.
Okay.
And I think right now it's a season of African American women. Not that we were ever out of style, but we are owning our voices, and we are working in a collective way that people are hearing us and they're seeing us.
All right. Well, we're ready for it. So let's talk about Atlanta. Wanda, you started off, because Wanda said, I said, okay,
I
go ahead.
told Frank, fall back. I need to talk to her first. Okay, so I think, you know, I love being here in our great city, and I'm watching people move here by the droves still. We're constantly building. Every time you turn around, there's a new apartment complex, there's a new subdivision, all these people are moving here because our city is so great. But I think my question is, what are we going to do about our traffic? Because now I'm finding that, you know, Saturdays and Sundays when we're getting out, we're in traffic Sunday night. When I'm coming from the comedy club at 12 o'clock at night, I'm in traffic. And I just want to know, like, when I go back home to Miami, I'm constantly seeing new bridges or new highways. How does that happen for our city? Because I see it widening. You know, we may widen the roads, but how do we, I guess, layer?
I think for the first time, what you will begin to see, Wanda, is that there is this collective effort to address our traffic. We aren't just looking at it as a City of Atlanta issue or a Cobb County issue or DeKalb County. Everybody really is starting to think and work on the same page for many reasons. So even when you look at the More MARTA money that we approved, you think about the expansion that's to come, and we're talking about expansion into Southwest Atlanta. We're talking about expansion into DeKalb County. And you will begin to see it layered on, whether it be light rail, whether it be these BRT buses, widening of lanes. There will be a lot of work in a lot of areas, but the other side of that is that Atlanta is hot, and we are still growing, and we are still developing in a way that really is the envy of cities across this nation. So traffic is huge, but the other part of that, balancing out our communities. I've said repeatedly, when you have great schools in areas across the city, you will then attract families out of Buckhead and out of Midtown in the Southeast Atlanta and Southwest Atlanta, and then the businesses will follow. So it really has to be a comprehensive, layered approach.
You know, I saw that there's been an ongoing social media debate about the changing of our city. and the way our city looks. We have a caller on line 4 that has a question. You're on with Frank and Wanda. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I was interested in whenever you go out of town, you always find different cities that they got their Korean town, their Chinatown, their little Italy town. And I wanted to know what you're going to do about opening up underground Atlanta, possibly making them a melon town where it's predominantly black with some jazz and blues.
All right, let's ask that question.
That's cute.
So that is cute.
That is true, too.
And if you've been around Atlanta as long as I have, you know, Underground Atlanta used to be that spot. I remember as a kid going down to Underground Atlanta, and it was a destination place. But and it will be that again, but it is going to look completely different. So there's a new developer who has purchased Underground Atlanta.
Okay.
And you are going to have a mixed-use community in Underground, and it is absolutely beautiful. And the great thing, it's going to be really another connection point. So you look at the vibrancy of Midtown, you're seeing what's happening in downtown with Georgia State. You will now have Underground as as a continuation, and then on out to Turner Fields. So we are having these spots that are filling in the gaps of our connectivity, but Underground is going to have housing, it's going to have shops, and it is going to look completely different than it does today.
So one of the things that I've been seeing is where that belt line has gone, it has totally changed the area. Some people are saying that belt line is one of the biggest proponents of what is happening with gentrification. And it was supposed to have affordable housing, but wherever that belt line has hit, like the prices have gone skyrocketing. Are there any plans in helping that so that we don't lose all the black areas in the city?
There are so many plans focused on affordable housing in the city of Atlanta, especially around the Beltline. But let me just say this. If you own a house on the west side of town, if your mother or your grandmother owns a house on the west side of town, do not sell it. It is the hottest area because the Beltline is coming through. And what we're seeing happening, people are putting flyers in mailboxes telling people, I'll buy your house, I'll pay cash, $65,000. Well, you may be sitting on a $400,000 house, depending on where it is connected to the Beltline.
Say that again.
So we've been focused, working with the Beltline and a number of other partners in stopping the bleed on our affordable housing piece. We've already put in close to $40 million in public investment towards affordable housing since January. Our goal is to get $1 billion in public and private investment over the next several years. And it really has a lot to do with education. If you're looking for a house in the city of Atlanta, go to Invest Atlanta, see what the incentives are, because you can still afford to live in the city on the west side, which is where our next big expansion of the Beltline
I see
will
what
be.
Arthur Blank is doing from the stadium area. Like the amount of money that's going around there is crazy.
It is. And it's this very unique thing about the city of Atlanta. We have these public and private partnerships that you don't find anywhere else in the country.
Okay.
So you have a billionaire and you have corporations like the Home Depot and Delta Airlines and UPS, and I can go on, who are putting their money
back
where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A, Dan Cathy is doing a lot of work on the west side, and it's about shoring up our communities. Georgia Power needs to hire new linemen. So Georgia Power, along with Delta, are working to create an education program where we can get some vocational training. So over the next few years, Delta doesn't have to go to Alabama to hire their airline mechanics. Georgia Power doesn't have to go out of state to hire their linemen. And these are like $85,000, $100,000 a year jobs. So we just did a 100,000 youth opportunity job fair with Starbucks and some of our other partners. We had more than 5,000 youth show up for jobs with companies like Target and Home Depot and Starbucks. So we have a lot of energy and synergy and interest in making sure that our communities are solid, especially as it relates to our young people and having opportunities.
When you say community being solid, one of the big issues is of crime. And we have a caller on line 2 that's got a question for you. You're on with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, Frank and Wanda. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good.
I realize that first responders are the backbone of a lot of metropolitan cities, and I see the problem we're having keeping police officers and firemen leaving to other jurisdictions. I just want to see what you're going to do to get that 2,000 mark to the police officers and keep the firemen around here instead of losing them to other big cities.
Good question.
That's a huge challenge for us. Right now, only around 20% of our police officers live within the city of Atlanta. And again, it goes back to one, the affordability issue, and secondly, how strong our schools are. A lot of times where there are great schools in the city, when people have young families, they can't always afford to live there. So with this year's budget, there was a 3.1% increase for police officers. We are continuing to focus on getting our numbers up. We are way behind the metro Atlanta area. But there are other things that we can do. We can work to help identify housing. We can make sure they have take-home cars. We can add education stipends. There's so many other things that we can do, but also bringing into play the use of technology in a way that we didn't always have. So whereas the traditional officer who walked the beat or rode around on the streets is still very important, but when you layer that in with an integrated camera network, that also helps with license plate readers. So there are a lot of things that we need to do. We recognize that our biggest challenge in crime is around our 18 to about 22-year-olds.
Right.
And it's important that we have officers who are invested in our communities, not just coming in, then driving back out to Cherokee County at the end of the day, but that they actually have a connection point with our communities. Our At Promise Youth Center over Vine City and English Avenue is a great example where our new recruits are volunteering or spending a day, 1 day a week over at the At Promise Youth Center.
Really?
So they're building relationships with the kids in the communities on the front end and not when they're just responding to an issue.
Nice. Let's go to line one. We have a question. V103, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, my question is, due to the large budget of $667 million, and that the mayor planned on giving the budget to the general employees and police and corrections, will that money be taxed like the former mayor gave the $811,000 away with non-tax?
I guess he's talking about the surplus of money that is going to be bonus to city employees.
So let me clear that up. The money is always taxed. I think what he's asking, and this is kind of an inside ball question, when the bonuses were given out, they were rounded up so that the taxes could be covered. So I'm just using round numbers. So say, for example, if someone had been given by the previous mayor bonus of $10,000, then their check may have actually been, I'm just throwing out a number, $14,000. So their take home would have been $10,000. We are going to do it in a way that is in line with what the IRS says we should do.
Right.
So if the bonuses, the one-time bonuses are $1,000, then the bonus will be $1,000 and
your taxes will be taken out.
Taxes will be taken out.
Okay. We're going to take a break. Our Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is here. 404-741-WVEE. If you've got a question, we're on with Frank and Wanda. Sophia, you got a question?
Of course.
All right. Coming up next right here on the People Station, V103. We are joined by Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. She is with us right now. We have a question on line number 2.
Yes.
About public schools. You're on with the mayor. Hello.
Hi, this is Ashlyn. I was calling to kind of ask what's in the plan to be done to bridge the gap between the homeless community that, you know, how we just shut down Peachtree and Pine, and that was one of the biggest shelters in the Atlanta community. And, like, you know, I'm a social worker, so I deal with a lot of low-income families, a lot of low-income people who are just on Social Security, $650 a month, $750 a month, and what's being built to bridge the gap of homelessness in the community. I know we're putting money in a lot of things, but, you know,
what's working to build the gap? Let's ask the question, Mayor.
So thank you for the question, Ashlyn, and thank you for the work that you are doing. It's so important. And we know that there is a homeless issue in the city of Atlanta. It is not nearly as bad as it used to be, because one of the things that we were able to achieve under the previous administration was what we call effective zero homelessness as it relates to veterans. So what we've seen is that you have to be very deliberate and very intentional about how you treat our homeless population. So it's not a monolithic population. And what we found with the Peachtree and Pine shelter is that it was this warehousing method. You were putting a roof over people's head, but you weren't providing the needed services. So what the model is now in the city of Atlanta, if you have someone who is dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome because they are a veteran, or a LGBTQ teen who's been kicked out of the house, or a mother with 4 kids, it's not appropriate to put them all in the same place. We are working towards smaller shelters throughout the 12 council districts in the city. So all of our homeless population is not in one location like it was with Peachtree and Pine. And then we're able to take services to their doorstep. So even as you look, if you're riding down Peachtree, the Old Imperial Hotel is now what we call permanent supportive housing. To the average person, you don't know that this is a place where people are being provided services, social services, and that really is the way that it should be, because you want to make sure that as you're providing services, that you're doing it with dignity and you're giving people an opportunity to be successful, not just to have a warm bed for the night, but services that will allow them to be functional and to be a part of society in a successful way for the long term.
I really like that because she's big on that. Oh my God. My husband and I would go over to Pine Street quite often, and take the barbecue grill and just feed them. And I remember, going in there, and you're absolutely right. Everybody's just all bundled up in one big place. I would be in tears leaving there with moms with their children. The men are downstairs, everybody. And I would go inside, and these women are crying out for help. So I have seen the change that you've made with the Imperial Hotel, and it warms my heart to see that. And I'm like, they say they moved them over there. So thank you for doing that, because I frequent there very often.
Well, and I want to give credit to the leadership of Mayor Reed with that. The Imperial Hotel, we broke ground on that under the previous administration. And so much of what we do in the city is about building upon work that was done by prior administrations. And we've had this great model of really being a concerned city, a compassionate city, going as far back, many mayors, but certainly with Mayor Maynard Jackson and his focus on the communities that really have true social needs.
Let's go to line number 3. You're on with Frank and Wanda. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is our guest. Hello.
Good morning, Mayor Bottoms. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for what you've done so far. But my question is, what will you do differently to bridge the gap between the mayor's office and the school board? Our schools on the southwest side, 30311, 30310, 3133, 1314, are nowhere near the schools in other areas. And not only are our children not getting what they need, but then the homeowners in these areas, our values are still low because the schools are poor. Nobody wants to move to a neighborhood where they have poor schools. We have these fabulous homes on the southwest side of town, and our values are still down because of poor school performance.
Well, let me just add a zip code to that. I live in 30331, right off of Cascade Road, and I have 4 kids who are school age, so I'm living this in real time. And during the break, Frank and I were just talking about some of the frustration we're having surrounding our kids in schools. And what I will say to you is that from day one, I've already been very active in mending the relationship with the APS. I graduated from Douglas High School. So this is real to me, but we've turned over nearly 50 deeds to APS, and this was an issue that was long simmering. Turned over the property deeds to APS so that they can do what they need to do physically with some of these schools and to own the property, have direct ownership of the property. But also just in working with Maria Kirstoffen to make sure that we have open dialogue. So one of the things that will happen in the city in the very near future, we will have a chief education officer in the city of Atlanta that chief education officer's sole purpose will be to fill in the gap as it relates to educating our children and creating opportunities for our communities, from vocational training to early childhood education. So one of my favorite quotes is Nelson Mandela: the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world is education. And I believe that we will not see a meaningful shift even in our crime rates until we have a solid school system in place, and there are opportunities for our kids. So that's why I'm excited about us getting a chief education officer in place, and I will continue to work on in leading the relationship from the city with the school superintendent and APS as a whole.
All right, let's go to line number 4, talking about some training in the city. Hello, you're on with the mayor.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
So I've been in Georgia about 8 years. I moved from Buffalo, New York, and I'm a nurse. I'm actually a staffing coordinator, and I hear the mayor talking about, vocational training, and I just wanted to make sure that in this vocational training, will there be funds for healthcare? Because I've realized that even at the bottom level with like the CNAs, they're overworked, they're underpaid, and I feel with healthcare, it can't be replaced with technology. That's a hands-on field. You always have to have bodies doing the job. It's so hard, and I see a lot of girls that get discouraged. They make $9 to $10 an hour to come in, and it's a ratio of 14-1 with residents to, CNAs. And they quit because they work in 80 hours or 160 hours, every 2 weeks, and they're trying to make doubles to make things work for their family. And they get paid no money. They get no appreciation. And, it's hard to transition from being a CNA to even being an LPN or, if you want to be an RN. There's no schools here that provide.
Let's ask the question. Is there anything we can do about that?
I think that the thing that we can continue to do is to work with our partners to make sure that people have options. So I know that there had been a push at one time with the city of Atlanta to move the needle as it relates to how much some people in the healthcare field were paid. We don't have as much influence on that. But what we have done from the city of Atlanta, we lead by example. So one of the pieces of legislation I introduced as a council person was to raise the minimum wage for our workers to $15 an hour. We are now, I believe, at $14 an hour. Next year, we'll be up to $15. And the reason being, we have to do what we need to do from the city of Atlanta. We want to give people an opportunity when you go to work every day, when you work 40 plus hours a week, that you can actually feed your family and house your family. And so part of it is leading by example, but the other part is also making sure that people are trained and they're educated and they have a solid education when they come out of APS, that they can have options in healthcare and any number of other fields.
Mayor, thank you so much for stopping by this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to ask my question.
Yes, go right ahead, Sophia.
Oh, okay.
I almost forgot. I apologize.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here and talk to our listeners. And I'm a traveler, and all of us, we travel. What is going on with the airport when you go to the airport and you have tons of lines, but only 2 and 3 lines are open? What are we going to do to get some people working in these lines at the airport?
Well, part of that is working with TSA, who controls the security lines at the airport. But what we're seeing, I was recently traveling, I'm drawing a blank on which city it was. I've been traveling so much. But who just hosted, I'm drawing a blank.
New Orleans?
Anyway. No, it wasn't New Orleans, but it was another airport, Indianapolis. And they were talking about some of the things that they had done in terms of creating new lines, especially when they have larger events coming through. So we are in the process of interviewing candidates as our lead at the Atlanta Airport, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. But it's working with TSA and also making sure that we are availing ourselves of the latest technology. So you notice you travel a lot, you go through different airports have different methods. But Atlanta is still the most efficient and the busiest airport in the world. So you do have to factor that in. There may be lines that are shorter in other places, but their airport is not busier than Atlanta. So that's part of our challenge.
All right. Thank you very much, Sophia. Mayor, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in this morning. It's Frank and Wanda in the morning, the People Station V103. If we didn't get to your question, we do apologize. The ATL's #1 for hip hop and R&B.